Hi folks, with Tacitus today, Tacitus Day, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk, and I'm going to be sort of a little humorous here, I guess, but talk about how to be a victim when it comes to gaining employment. Now, what got me onto this, I've mentioned this actually some time ago, but a work colleague who's done some work for us, and he's quite good. I'd recommend him to anybody. The quality of his work's good. He's diligent, conscientious, reliable, dependable. But he's a white male, straight white male. He'd be, I don't know, 50 years old, I suppose. And he stays in touch with us, and we're sort of talking every now and again. And he was. He'd had a longer contract that had expired, and he was looking for. He decided he didn't want to do sort of short-term contract. He wanted a full-time gig, and so he was out looking for that. And again, we wished him well. And I said, look, if you need a reference or anything, let me know, and I'm more than happy to supply it. So he was looking for sort of quite a while, and so he decided to make out that he was handicapped. So he said that he's got a bad heart condition. He's had multiple heart attacks, and in the very first place that he used that line for a job he didn't particularly want, by the way, as he explains it, they pretty much hired him on the spot. Oh, you're a victim. And the HR lady got very excited. The more he talked about his victimhood and how he could keel over and die at any time, the more excited she got about giving him the job. So it's quite the reverse of reality, which is turning the world upside down to no one's benefit, it seems. But so now he's in a job where he's overqualified for that job in my view anyway, and so he sort of just goes through the motions. He's just filling in time, and but there's no way he could have got that job without claiming to be a victim. Now, we're recently at a meeting with it was like a government quango type thing. And I take it for granted now whenever I go to these meetings that I'm going to be sitting around the table with, due to affirmative action and diversity hires and that sort of thing, that nobody there will be qualified to do the job. Sometimes they're so unqualified that it's embarrassing to the point where you think, well, why am I even talking to this person? Haven't got a clue as to what's going on. But nonetheless, you have to go through it. Some of these people are going to sign your paycheck or sign your payment to your company. So you've got to humour them and be very patient, because if they think that you think that they're idiots, then they get real nasty, even though they are idiots and totally unqualified. They don't see they've been over promoted or given jobs. They see social entitlement rather than job competence as the issue. And but women have been denied these jobs for thousands of years. Black lesbians have denied these jobs. So we're now only sort of leveling the playing field from what it's been, which is, of course, an absurd position to take, but one they've been encouraged to think through high school and university. Anyway, coming to there was a white guy there was they said they were hiring a guy hiring someone to do whatever the job was, and then we turned up for this one of the meetings, and there's a white guy. Again, I put him at probably mid to late 40s, somewhere around there. He seemed to be in pretty bad shape. When he did open his mouth, he wasn't unintelligent, and he's far more likely to come to grips with the requirements of the role than any of the other people in there. And the women were sort of treated him almost in a maternal way. They were sort of mothering him, and it was an odd sort of thing to watch. And so I waited till the meeting broke up and we were going off and doing different things. So I sidled up to him and out of interest, and again I saw raw material for a video as much as anything, so I was chatting to him, and he's actually been he's been a drug addict, so he's been in drug rehab, and he's been in alcohol rehab, and he was on drugs for a while for being schizophrenic, and which was apparently some byproduct of the drugs he was taking. So he's been in a bad way, and he's been in and out of you know, alcohol and drug rehab and so on for close on 10 years. So, and he had odd jobs during that time where he was, you know, sweeping floors and so on. And somehow he's got into this, which seems inconceivable that he. So he was telling, and even he thinks it's funny, even given his fragile condition. He's not in good condition, and I think he's still taking a lot of drugs to keep him on an even keel. But he ginned it up. So he was. He thought it was funny because he gins up. You know, he sits down. I mean, just picture this: you're sitting down for a job interview, and you're meant to demonstrate your qualifications, your experience and credentials and so on, your accomplishments. So that's how it's meant to work in the real world, in something resembling a merit-based system. But instead he leads with, wow, you know, the last 10 years I've been in drug rehab, and I've been in a straitjacket, and I've been Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm there every night. And and you wouldn't hire someone like this in a million years. But he leads with this, and he depicts himself as this, and projects himself as this victim who's somehow the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune have fallen upon him, and he's going. so then they go, victim. Oh, and you went to drug rehab, and you went to Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, and you were, you know, locked up in a room with a straitjacket and being injected with drugs. Oh, you're the one for us. And they gave him the job. Oh, fuck. But this is again, there's a guy I used to work with, and he had a very, very mild case of cerebral palsy. And in order to mask it, he was desperate to hide it. In order to mask it, he had this sort of quite flamboyant sort of walk. But that was an affectation to conceal that he had, again, this mild cerebral palsy. And so he also had another ailment, I can't remember what it was now, where he had to inject himself twice a day with something. Anyway, he was and he was a great pains to conceal that. But he said to me a while ago, he said that instead of concealing it now, he pushes it as a credential. Now, he doesn't talk about his accomplishments or anything like that because he's white and straight. He doesn't know any of that shit. What he does is he talks about his, you know, and I've got cerebral palsy and I've got this disease, and, you know, I have to spend one day a month in hospital, and I've got to they hired him. So he's convinced that that's a credential. If anyone, you know, gets in his face or gives him a hard time about anything, he just says that he you know, I can just go to HR anytime. So, they're discriminating against me because I got cerebral palsy, and HR will go along and beat up whoever that person is, and so that reduces his accountability. So if anyone says he's not doing his job or could do a better job, or he's slipping, or he's sloppy about something, or whatever it is, you know, he handed his reports late, then he just, they're just doing that because I got cerebral palsy. So he uses it like a black lesbian would say, they're only doing that because I'm a black lesbian. Now, you couple that with things like there was one company we're doing business with, well, they did quite a number of layoffs, and they had to trim the payroll. Now, it's interesting, the cycle here, because they started going all affirmative action and you know, hiring as many black lesbians as they could, and all this. Now, none of these people could do the job. They were all difficult, and they all required this sort of special tread on eggshells handling. And this caused the company to go into a situation where that they weren't really making, you know, their expenses were out of control, and they couldn't increase their revenues, even with government handouts, you know, cozy contracts from the government. They couldn't make ends meet, and so they had to trim the fat, as it were. But instead of trimming the fat, they got rid of all the competent white boys, or middle management type white boys. You know, the white boys at the top, they kept their jobs and bonuses. But so they got rid of the white boys. Say everything from middle manager to those reporting directly to the board. Really, those people were the ones that were particularly hard hit. And I was sitting down with the CEO, and he was explaining his rationale, and the HR director was with him, and she, or both of them together, they said, well, look, why did we get rid of the high-performing, competent, credentialed, accomplished white guys? Because it'd be easier for them to find a job, and they're not going to sue us because they are so employable that they won't sue us. Whereas if we lay off all the black lesbians, we'll be buried in lawsuits, human rights commissions, lawsuits, and it'll be just a disaster. No matter how much we give them, as if we give them a decent payout, they'll still chase us through. They'll still give us a hard time, and they'll get all their legal fees paid for by the taxpayer or by the NGO. Whereas the straight white guy, he's got to make a decision: does he spend his own money going after, chasing us through the courts when he's got kids to get through school, and he's got real world things to deal with, whereas the black lesbian has none of those concerns, and the taxpayer will pick up the tab for their legal fees. So that's why we got rid of all the competent straight white guys. So we need, I guess, to understand how this has permeated the attitudes in HR departments and workforces, hiring decisions, recruitment decisions. That someone can front up and say, look, I've had a number of heart attacks and I could die at any minute. And they perceive that as a credential, and they hire him on the fucking spot. I mean, this is how insane things are. You've been attached to us today, your pushback challenge. Thank you for listening.